So the dingling starts the service, and the softer sound starts the script after the announcements, just in case you're confused about where we are in today's order of worship. Welcome, dear friends. Yeah, one or the other. Welcome, dear friends. I'll see if it slides back down again. I can hold it. Welcome to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. We're glad to have you with us today. My name is Judy Lucarelli, and I'm serving on the Board of Trustees. I use she, her pronouns to describe myself. I'm a white woman, and in April, I'll be 74. For those of you, still a lot younger than my husband. For those of you who cannot see clearly, I have graying brown hair, very straight, long enough to braid. This is for people who don't see clearly, but also if you were going to confuse me and Reverend Kristina. Short, curly, long, straight, gray. I think mine started out that color, but anyway. Since the age of 12, I've been 5 foot 10 inches tall. I have hazel eyes and wire-rimmed glasses. While I hail from the Wabanaki lands of the Passamaquoddy, where the colors are spectacular right now, we want to acknowledge that here at this church, we are on the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole peoples. We are a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you. This is a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. As such, ours is an active church, and everyone is invited to participate in any of our activities. To learn more about events, our church calendar is on our website, uutarpon.org, or we'd be happy to talk with you during the coffee hour. Our children are with us during the beginning of the service. We have faith formation programming available with our gifted leaders, Jami and Anna. Children gather for their time together with them after the story. If you'd like more information about our programming or to help while Jami is away with her new baby, please contact Reverend Kristina after the service. For those present with us in the sanctuary, we have connection cards available in the pews near the hymnals. If you fill one out front and back and put it in the offering plate or give it to one of our greeters, we'll be able to keep in touch with you. If you're watching us on Zoom or YouTube, you can send us an email at membership@uutarpon.org to get connected. There are also small cards to write any joys or sorrows that you would like shared with all of us, if you would rather have me read it instead of coming forward to share it yourself at the end of the service. Music is provided by our music director, Bonnie Whitehurst, and our choir. Again, welcome.
Our first hymn is 1008 in the Teal Hymn Book. 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And if you feel like standing, you may. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed, blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
I am the Reverend Kristina Spaude. I use she, her pronouns and am a white woman. I am tall with almost shoulder length curly brown hair, parted on one side with blue eyes. Our opening words this morning come from my colleague Leslie Takahashi. This is Call to Worship for Stewardship Sunday. To worship means to consider that which has worth. Today we consider with gratitude the many gifts of this community. The opportunity to be affirmed in who we are and to offer that affirmation to others. The chance to rise up together to help remake the world in the ideal of justice. The freedom to choose one's own path to truth and to learn from the travelogues of others. The space to expand one's own spirit and to reconnect after busy or humdrum weeks with the sustaining truths of one's life. Regular reminders that we must see our world through the lens of love, and the aspiration to consider all life as precious. For if all of it is made of stardust, how can it not be wondrous? So this morning, let's welcome all these gifts with gratitude, for they have been paid for with many currencies. The blood of the martyrs who died so that we can be free in our religion. The sweat of those who persisted in justice's name against hostility and adversity. The tears of those who struggled to build better lives for those in this life. The questions of our children as they understand the world anew and offer their understanding to us as a fresh lens. The laughter and joy of those giddy with the embrace of community. The dollars and cents of those who gave what they could and stretched and gave a little bit more. The infinite small acts of service that make the parts greater than the whole, done by those who knew themselves in symphony with our purposes. So today we consider with gratitude and humility what it means to pay forward what has been paid forward to us. And now, with all of this, let us enter into worship with gladness in our hearts. Come, let us worship together.
We light our chalice with these words by Julianne Lepp. We light our flaming chalice as beloved people united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
And let us now sing hymn number 123 in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Life.
Our story this morning comes from Patricia Polacco, who is both a writer and illustrator. This is The Blessing Cup. And I will note that I chose this story weeks before war broke out in Israel with Palestine, and is not a commentary on what is happening there. When my great-grandmother Anna was a little girl long before she came to America, she lived in a small shtetl with her mother, Papa, and baby sister Magda near Tver in Russia. Life was made harder yet whenever the Tsar's soldiers came. "Why do they do this to us, Mama?" cried Anna to her mother. As her mother rocked Anna and Magda in her arms, she whispered, "I don't know, my child, I don't know." When it was safe, Anna's mother took them into the kitchen. Soon, Anna's papa came home. When they all sat down, Anna's mother placed 2 candlesticks on the table. She climbed up on the warming stove and pulled down something that was lovingly covered with an embroidered cloth. Underneath was a magnificent china tea set. It was Friday, and the sun had set. Anna's mother lit the candles and whispered prayers that began Shabbat. "Tell us again, Mama. Tell us about the tea set," Anna teased. "Well," her mother began, "it was many years ago, just after your papa and I were married. A horse-drawn cart came to our village all the way from Tver. It was on the biggest wooden crate that I had ever seen. Everyone in Roinovka gathered round to see what was in it. That is when I discovered the crate was for me," she exclaimed with a grand gesture. "And when I unpacked it, everyone in the village stepped back. It took their breath away. It was this beautiful china tea set that you see before you now." "But Mama, the note! Tell us about the note again," Anna insisted. Inside the pot was a note. It was from my Aunt Rebecca in Minsk. It read, "Rachel, this is for you to celebrate your marriage. This tea set is magic. Anyone who drinks from it has a blessing from God. They will never know a day of hunger. Their lives will always have flavor. They will know love and joy, and they will never be poor." It was true, Anna thought. God had blessed them. Before their evening meals, Mama would always say, "so that our lives will always have flavor." Anna felt nothing but love and joy in her mother's house, and even though their lives were humble because there was never enough money, Anna's papa would always say to her, "There is rich and there is rich. We are richer than kings, and do you know why?" Then he and Anna chanted together, "Because we have each other." Anna felt that in Roinovka, everyone was rich. They had one another. Winter was coming to an end in Roinovka. The first signs of spring were peeking through the last thin blankets of snow. But it was still cold, so Anna's family slept all together in the warming bed on top of the brick oven in the kitchen. As Anna drifted off to sleep, she watched the flickering light on the oven make patterns on the tea set. It was as if they were dancing just for her. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, Anna was startled awake with terrible sounds. "What's happening, Mama?" Anna screamed. Her mother bundled Anna and Magda into the goat house where they hid while Anna's papa ran to the temple. When her papa got there, it was too late. The temple was in flames. Rabbi Wisemantel shook a paper in Anna's papa's face. The Tsar has ordered all Jews to leave Russia. All of us, he sobbed. This is happening everywhere in Russia, the commandant of the soldiers called out. Anna's papa rushed back to his home to tell his family. For the next days, everyone had to sell or give away their meager belongings. They were ordered to pack what they could drag in carts or carry and leave. Where will we go, Mama? Anna asked. Your papa has a cousin in a faraway land called America. Perhaps we can go there, her mother whispered. How far away is it? Anna asked. Across a vast sea, so you must help me now and be brave. I don't want to leave, Anna cried softly. None of us do, her mother whispered as she packed. Why don't they want us here? Anna finally asked. Because we are different from them. They are afraid of what they don't understand, Anna's mother said, wrapping the beautiful tea set in soft clothing. It will bring God's blessings with us on our journey, her mother whispered. Anna's papa loaded his sewing machine, their menorah, the shofar, his tallis, and his holy books. This is the last of what we are able to take with us, he said, sighing. He placed Anna and her sister in the cart, and he and their mother slowly pulled the cart away. Anna looked back at her village as long as she could see it. Only when it disappeared from her sight did she look ahead and wonder what their new life in America would be. That first night, they stayed in a cold barn with other refugees fleeing the pogroms. Anna's mother went to the well and drew water in the china teapot and said, "May God's blessings be upon us." Then she broke the bread and sprinkled salt upon it and whispered, "Bread so that we shall never know hunger in our new life. Salt so that our lives will always have flavor. We shall always know love, and as long as we are together, we shall never be poor." Then she passed the cup to each of them. They drank the water, ate their salted bread and raisins, and hugged close and went to sleep. As time went on, the journey was very hard. On some nights, they were welcome to sleep in barns. On other nights, they were chased away. Most nights, Anna's papa slept on the ground while his family slept in the cart. The open ground was damp, and he shivered with the cold. As the months passed, Magda was no longer a baby in her mother's arms. Anna's papa did odd jobs to get enough money so that they could continue their flight from Russia. It was a hard fall, and as they approached yet another new town, it was getting harder for Anna's papa to pull the cart. Then, on the outskirts of the town, he couldn't take another step, and he collapsed. Anna's mother ran to find a doctor. When the doctor arrived, he listened to Papa's chest. "Your husband is very ill. He needs medicine, good food, rest, warmth, and care," he said. Anna's mother looked distressed. "You can stay with me. I live quite alone now. I'll make your husband well," the doctor said as he brought them into his house. Anna, Magda, and their mother looked around the doctor's fine house. "Look at these rugs," Anna's mother said as they all leaned over and felt one of them. "My late wife collected fine Persian rugs. There's a rich merchant just down the street who has offered me a fortune for that one," the doctor chirped with a broad smile. After he put Anna's papa to bed, he came into the kitchen. "Can you cook, woman? That is the question," he boomed. Anna's mother smiled back and bowed. "Such food I'll make for you, doctor," Anna's mother announced, opening cupboards and seeing what there was in the house to prepare to eat. Then welcome, my dears, the doctor said softly. Yevgeny Vladimirovich Pushkin was true to his word. With his constant care, Anna's papa was soon recovering. The doctor saw to it that Anna and her sister were given proper food and fresh milk every day. It was he who noticed that Anna could not see well, so he fitted her with a pair of spectacles. He took great delight in the good food that Anna's mother prepared. He grew fond of the two children, and the whole family called him Uncle Zhenya. Some months later, there was a pounding on the door. Anna's mother knew right away from the look on Uncle Zhenya's face that what the visit was about. "They told you that you cannot house Jews, haven't they?" she asked. Dr. Pushkin nodded yes. "Then we shall have to leave," Anna's mother said sadly. "My dear, your husband cannot survive pulling that cart and sleeping in the open air. He is gravely weakened from the pneumonia." He put on his coat and went out the front door. When Uncle Zhenya came back, he asked the family to go into the parlor. He pulled a packet of papers from his pocket. "I have gotten you all traveling papers so that you can cross borders safely. I also bought these tickets for the train that will take you to Verdansk. There I have arranged passage for all of you on a ship that will take you to America," he said quietly. Anna's papa's eye fell to his knees and his eyes filled with tears. "How, Zhenya? How could you possibly have done this? It had to have cost you a small fortune." "Only that rug you are kneeling on. I sold it," Zhenya said with a broad smile. "But how can we ever repay you?" Anna's mother cried. That evening, Anna's mother unpacked the tea set and brewed rich black chai tea. It brings God's blessings, and our desire is that a blessing will forever be on you in this house. Then she taught Uncle Zhenya the ritual of the bread, salt, love, and being richer than a king. They all rose very early the next morning. Dr. Pushkin drove them to the train himself in his carriage. When he arrived back home, he was astonished by what he saw on the sideboard in his dining room. It was the exquisite tea set. Next to it was a note. Anna's mother had written, "Always remember, dear friend, you are the bread that fed us. You are the salt that flavored our lives. You are the love and joy that held us together. Your golden, kind heart makes you rich indeed. You shall never be poor. I am leaving our precious tea set in your good keeping. We kept one cup so that we still have its blessing among the four of us. It is all that we will need." And so it was. Anna and her family traveled across the sea to America. Anna and her family all stood together at the rail and looked up at the Statue of Liberty. "Papa, are the Tsar's soldiers here too?" Anna asked as she took his hand. "No, my dearest, not here. They can't reach us here," he whispered as he squeezed her hand. They lived for a time in Manhattan on 10th Street. Anna's papa worked in a tailor's shop just down the block from the 3-room walk-up. Every night, Anna's mother got out the one remaining cup and shared tea from it with her family. As they drank, they remembered the bread, salt, love, and richness of being together. They also vowed that they would never forget Uncle Zhenya. Eventually, Anna's mother and papa moved the family from New York to Union City, Michigan. On every family occasion and holiday, they drank from the cup and recited its blessings. Anna's parents lived out their days on their little farm, and shortly after her papa's death, Anna received the cup from her mother. Anna shared the cup and its blessings with her husband, and children all the rest of her life. Shortly before her death, she gave the cup to her daughter, Carly. My grandmother, Carly, and her family named that cup the Blessing Cup and shared its blessings. In 1938, Carly gave the Blessing Cup to my mother, Mary, on her wedding day. In 1962, my mother gave the Blessing Cup to me on my wedding day. I kept the Blessing Cup in an honored place in my home. I drank from it with my own 2 children while teaching them the blessings that it carried. I stored the cup on the top shelf in my china cabinet. I did at times wish that there were more than one cup so that I could give one to both of my children to take a piece of our history with them when they married. On October 17th, 1989, at 5:04 in the afternoon, my home was rocked by one of the strongest earthquakes the San Francisco area has experienced since the Great Quake in 1906. When I knew that everyone that I loved was safe, I walked into the dining room and to my horror saw the china cabinet overturned. Everything in it had been shattered. I caught my breath. Oh God, the Blessing Cup, I sighed. When I looked down, there it was on the floor in the midst of the shards of broken glass and china. It had broken exactly in 2, as if by design, by an unseen force. I thought of my 2 children and smiled. I picked up the 2 pieces and held them close to my heart. At that moment, I realized more than any other time that my ancestors were my bread, that the salt and flavor of my life was their stories, that those stories were kept by them so that I would know that I was loved generations before I was born. How rich I am indeed. We will sing the children to their programming with Anna now, and as we do, I will light this candle, the flame of love of this community. We will sing hymn number 413 in the gray hymnal, Go Now in Peace.
Go now in peace, go now in peace, where love will surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace, where the love of God surrounds you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now is the time in our service where we take our offering for the work and welfare of this church. Ours is a free faith which must sustain itself financially. You may place your offering in the plate that will be passed around. Mail it to 57 Reed Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida 34689, or go online to uutarpon.org and select the donate button. The offering will now be given and received.
For our offertory this morning, we will be using hymn number 368 in the gray hymnal. 368, Now Let Us Sing. And there are 2 parts, the bass part and the upper part. And there are also 4 verses. Each verse has its own adjective: hope, love, joy, and power, or faith.
Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within.
hope within. Sing to the power of the hope within. Lift up your voice. Sing to the power of the hope within. Sing to the power of the life within. Sing to the power of the love within. Lift your voice. Be not afraid. Sing to the power of the love within. Sing to the power of the joy within. Sing to the power of the joy within. Lift up your voice. Be not afraid. Sing to the power of the joy within.
We will now take a moment of silent reflection, meditation, allowing you to settle into yourselves and your seats. Take a few deep breaths deep into your belly if that is comfortable for you. Our reading today comes from Marcus Leifert. This is The Grout. The Unitarian Universalist congregation where I served as an intern made a mosaic tree of life the summer before I arrived. Congregants of all ages came together to craft the tree's leaves using bits and pieces of broken ceramics, jewelry, glass, and stone. There are many precious personal items in the tree, including fragments of the Berlin Wall, a father's watch face, pieces of a great-grandmother's china, and a key to the front door of a loved home. Like the members of the community that brought them together, each part is imbued with memories and meaning. Each fragment holds a piece of truth. Unitarian Universalists are mosaic makers. We are a people who bring together the broken pieces of our histories and the shining pieces of our seeking, and piece by piece create a mosaic religion. Our tree of life is found in the stories of our living tradition. The bead from a transformational moment of worship at a youth conference. The bit of paper stamped with the blazing emblem of the Unitarian Service Committee that saved lives during World War II. The button or patch on a backpack that proudly proclaims the first justice issue that lit our souls on fire. But our mosaic making tells another story too, one that is more difficult often to see. One that is essential to the purposes of religious community, one that lies not in the beautiful and broken bits and pieces, but in the grout. Grout. The chalky, gritty stuff that is squeezed between the cracks of tiles. In a mosaic, the grout holds the image together, unifying disparate pieces into a whole. The grout of a community takes years to lay and settle. Grout happens in board meetings and committee meetings and endless emails and slow-moving institutions. It is in weekly potlucks shared by neighbors, a ride to church, and coffee in the social hall after worship. While the folks who show up for church only on Christmas and Easter will hopefully enjoy the beauty of the mosaic they find, they may never know the power of the grout that holds us through all the seasons of life. We help to make the grout when we learn each other's names and when we reach out across generational divides. We help to make the grout when we show up on Sunday morning without having checked first to see if we're interested in the sermon topic. When a newborn arrives to be blessed by the community, it is the grout that enables us to welcome them. And it is in the grout that we rest when we gather to grieve and memorialize a beloved one who has died. Hold us, O grout. Gather us in through time and space and make all our broken pieces whole in community. In our multiplicity, make us one. From each of our jagged edges, give us the shape of a communal beauty.
Do we go out?
Wait a minute.
That's it.
Go.
I want you to know that the flowers this morning are in celebration of the Reverend Theodore Parker. It was his practice to begin putting flowers in the pulpit in Boston. He was the only minister who did that. The others thought it was sacrilege. Please keep your hands and feet inside for this ride while we are in motion. To a crowded room with more than 3,000 in attendance, the Reverend Theodore Parker delivered what is still considered one of the most important sermons in Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist history, titled The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity, for a colleague's ordination. In it, Reverend Parker of the Ark of the Moral Universe is long fame argued that there are two aspects of Christianity: the doctrines, the rituals, even the people and the ministers, which change and transform over time. And then there is the pure essence of the faith, which is God and his expression through Jesus Christ. The two may overlap, and for what is transient, we certainly hope that it would overlap with the permanent, but there is always some distinction between the two. Sometimes it is that they are not synced, and sometimes it is simply that the transient is always the interpretation, the attempt to express or convey the ideas of the permanent. And you are welcome. I just saved you 2 hours of time from having to listen to that sermon. Also, you're welcome for not preaching for 2 hours every week. Sometimes the transient is simply what doesn't work or isn't useful anymore. The permanent is the community, the covenant, and the ways that we journey together. For us, over time, this has manifested in leaving more conservative theology and even moving away from a God-centric to God-inclusive faith while remaining bound by congregational polity and covenant through these changes. God's essence may stay the same, but our ideas about what is and looks like and how it manifests in the world change. So if we look at our story, the blessing cup, through this lens, the transient is first the tea set, then the teacup, passed down through generations. It is because of its being passed down that it becomes considered the permanent. But what we discover at the end of the story is that the permanent is, in fact, no longer the tea set or the teacup, but the blessing of the generations that is passed through from one to the next. We see it again in the reading with the precious items that have been brought to be included in the mosaic, even with the grout. Over time, these will fade, the precious pieces and memories that made them worthy of being shared. But the beauty and truth offered in the tree of life itself will remain. A reminder of the essence of a church and of a faith, the lives of their people. I want you to be thinking about how the transient and the permanent are or are not important as I begin to share about the Reverend Dr. James Luther Adams' 5 smooth stones. You perhaps will remember that I did have the amazing opportunity to share a quote from Adams 2 weeks ago from Playboy. There's a story in the Jewish scriptures, the Hebrew Bible, in 1 Samuel, of a young man named David. David isn't a boy, but not fully a young man either. He's maybe 12, 13. He's the youngest in his family, too young to go to war for sure. His oldest brothers and father were among the troops who have gone to battle. They are in service of King Saul and the Israelites who are fighting with the Philistines. There's been a standoff for 40 days between the two sides. The Philistines have one warrior named Goliath who has challenged the Israelites to fight him. If whoever is sent to fight against Goliath wins, the Israelites win, but if he loses, they all lose. 40 days. And no one volunteers. So one day, David is bringing some food to his brothers and hears about this challenge and offers to go against Goliath. Again, David is little and not considered old enough to fight, and Goliath is a giant, said to be 10 feet tall. They put armor on David and give him weapons, and they're too heavy for him to move, and he can't go anywhere with them. But David has defended his flock against lions and bears, so he figures he can do this. David approaches Goliath, and Goliath laughs at him. David says that he's got the Lord God Almighty on his side and that he will prevail. Now, David came armed with only a slingshot and 5 smooth stones that he gathered from the riverbed. With his first shot, the stone hits Goliath in the forehead, sinks into his skin, I don't know what these stones were made of, causing him to fall over. David then killed Goliath with Goliath's own sword and cut off his head. Traditionally, the moral of this story is that with God, all things are possible. What Adam takes from this story is that any opponent can be overcome, regardless of size, with 5 smooth stones and conviction. Adams reframes the stones as relevant aspects of liberal religion and Goliath as conservative interpretations. Because theologians and preachers will go to any length to use an illustration. The one-word attributes for each stone have been designated by Connie Goodbread and the Reverend Susan Smith, and they are, if I got them after 3 years, hope, love, courage, justice, and joy. Yeah, good job. The 5 stones, as Adam defines them in brief. Hope. Religious liberalism depends on the principle that revelation is continuous. He goes on, meaning has not been finally captured. Nothing is complete, and thus nothing is exempt from criticism. At best, our symbols of communication are only reference and do not capsule reality. Events of word, deed, and nature are not sealed. They point always beyond themselves. Not only is significant novelty both possible and manifest, but also significance is itself inchoate and subject to intertensions of peril and opportunity. Love. All relations between persons ought ideally to rest on mutual, free consent and not on coercion. There are limitations to this, he explains, like children have to go to school or have some academic progression monitored. But the point is something quite akin to the principle of free will. Adams writes, "This method of free inquiry and persuasion is the only one consistent with both the dignity and limitations of human nature, and it is the method that yields the maximum of discovery and criticism." Courage. We've only gotten through 2. There's 3 more. Religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct one's effort toward the establishment of a just and loving community. It is this which makes the role of the prophet central and indispensable in liberalism. He continues, "A faith that is not the sister of justice is bound to bring us to grief." And further, the community of justice and love is not an ethereal fellowship that is above the conflicts and turmoils of the world. Freedom, justice, and love require a body as well as a spirit. We do not live by spirit alone. Justice. We deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. He writes, "Anything that exists effectively in history must have form, and the creation of form requires power. It requires not only the power of thought, but also the power of organization and the organization of power. There is no such thing as goodness as such. And joy. Liberalism holds that the resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. Progress is now, he writes, seen not to take place through inheritance. Each generation must anew win insight into the ambiguous nature of human existence and must give new relevance to moral and spiritual values. There is something in the genuine liberal perspective that, while recognizing the tragic nature of the human condition, continues to live with a dynamic hope. I know many of you were attracted to Unitarian Universalism by our principles and our untraditional pluralistic theology. What you may not have realized is that the theology will continue to move, to change, which is not how things always work in other faiths. And it is true also that the principles aren't really why we stay. We stay because of the people. Part of the transience of a faith, but in one such as ours, also one of the most vital. The buildings are transient, the theology will eventually be too, but the people, we pray the people remain. For now, these 5 stones have laid the foundation of our road, the path, the covenant we move on together. They guide us, help keep us true to our values, call us in to move in the same direction. As important as these stones are, as true as they are still to the core of our Unitarian Universalist theology, it is the people who help carry the stones, carry us when we falter. We, people, are both possibly the most transient, but also in our faith, the most permanent of all. We might consider understanding the stones instead in this way. Hope. As Adams writes, religious liberalism depends on the principle that revelation is continuous. The Reverend Ida Folsom was a Universalist minister. She served this congregation from 1949 to 1956. Born and raised in Maine, she worked as a teacher for years and became an author and organizer along the way. Reverend Folsom was ordained in 1952 by this congregation, which she had been sent to revive. She was an advocate for women's rights and served as the first executive director of the Association of Universalist Women, a role she took on after serving this congregation and among her many other roles serving Universalism. This church hadn't had a resident minister for 5 years when Reverend Folsom, at the time Miss Folsom, arrived. The building and grounds were in such a state that the Universalist Church of America, the UCA, was considering closing the church and rehoming the Innes paintings. Miss Folsom had been serving as the assistant to the general superintendent of the UCA when she was sent here. It took 2 months of round-the-clock work from multiple people to get the church building in any kind of shape worthy of holding services in. She had said that though through diligent effort and hard work, a church in decline can be revived. She wrote these words: "The church is what we make it. It can do nothing for us until we do something for it. It can do nothing for the world until we give it the power through the strength of our own purposeful living. We can offer to it no more acceptable service than firm convictions based on a wealth of experience, maturing minds which welcome change when the evidence is worth it, and an unfaltering loyalty to the best we know. Reverend Folsom was hope. Love. All relations between persons ought ideally to rest on mutual free consent and not on coercion. Love is our children and youth. I have said before, and I will say to the end of my days, that our children and youth are among the most precious of our resources and investments. They are remarkable, wonderful, and a joy to be with. They are our future and everything best about our present. If you want to know what living as a UU in this world is like, spend some time with our kiddos. They do it without even trying. And because love is at the center of this faith where our children and youth should be, they are love. Courage, Adams writes, religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct one's effort toward the establishment of a just and loving community. It is this which makes the role of the prophet central and indispensable in liberalism. Robert Palme was a member of this congregation briefly. He moved here from Pensacola, where he had lived for 40 years. Rob was an active member of the congregation there, and leaving was difficult for him. In anticipation of his move, he began engaging with this congregation via the wonders of Zoom, and remained after his move an inspiring participant in the Journey Stories gatherings. He moved to this area to be closer to his daughter after his wife died. Rob was a poet, an artist, and a true Renaissance man. He had been in the Navy. He was educated. If you asked him a question or made a statement he didn't agree with, his brow would furrow, and you know you were about to learn something. Though he was not with us long, his commitment to and impact on this congregation was deep. Rob was courage. Justice. We deny the Immaculate Conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. Irene Prosser was a longtime member of this congregation. She was invested and involved in many ways. Irene was chair of the Caring Committee, did many social justice works, was a member of the quilting group, was on the nominating committee, and did other activities. Irene was often an important part of the grout that helped hold this congregation together. Irene had an opinion about everything, and she told you what it was, which I admired both for the directness, but also that she was never mean about it. She was a little stubborn at times, but also open and willing to learn new things. I was often impressed at how invested she was in learning and growing despite her age, which others often use as a way to justify their closed thinking or bad behavior. Her spiritual depth was great, and I know that she is missed by many. Irene was justice and joy. Liberalism holds that the resources, divine and human, that are available for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. Bonnie Whitehurst has served as the music director for this congregation for 23 years now. Each week, Bonnie shares her talents and skills with this congregation and has been a beloved part of this congregation's interest in worship. While Bonnie has plenty of her own talent to share, she is also skilled in helping our choir really shine during our program year. Bonnie is joy. These are just a handful of the people who have been important and inspirational in the journey of this congregation's life. The 5 smooth stones may guide us on our way, but we are the grout, holding the stones in place tenderly, both shaping our path and being shaped by it. You should all have a circle. They are going to be stones. We will be adding them to the bulletin board in the social hall as we fill our path to the future. On your stone, I'd invite you to write the name or names of the person or people who welcomed you into the congregation, who held you, who anchored you during times of difficulty and celebrated with you in times of joy. If you'd like to write more than one name, we will have more circles available during the coffee hour, or you can write more than one on your circle. And if you're on Zoom or YouTube, feel free to email or text me and I'll get yours up for you. Together, may we recognize what has been paid forward to us, the transient and the permanent, the lessons, the future, the perseverance, the dreaming, the beauty, and most especially the love. May we remember that the road isn't meant to end with us, but to hold space and guide us and those who are yet to come. May we share what has been so generously given to us. If you would please rise in body or in spirit and lift your voice in song with me to our closing hymn in the teal hymnal, number 1028, The Fire of Commitment.
I sort of know it, but
closing words come from Jean Harrison Newyar, who has written in The Gift of Faith, "In the lore of ancient China, there's a story of a philosopher who was asked, 'Where is the road called hope?' He replied, 'It does not exist, but as people move upon it, it comes into being.' I invite you to continue moving forward on this path, this journey, with our 5 smooth stones and grout and people-powered journey with me."
This guy.
We extinguish our chalice with the same words by Julianne Lepp. We extinguish our flaming chalice as a beloved people united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This chalice is of audacious hope. This chalice shined a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.